Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the Online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. Today we're trying out a pretty unique restricted duo in Solgaleo and Zacian. This team was built by a Japanese player called Kona, who was able to finish in the top 16 of Japanese nationals a couple of weekends ago with this exact team. So I linked their Twitter down in the description below, as well as a rental, paste, and team report written in Japanese, courtesy of the creator. And I wanted to feature it because, one, it features a pretty unique Assault Vest Solgaleo set. Solgaleo in itself, not a very common restricted Pokemon, especially right now. And this Solgaleo was kind of, designed to counter a lot of the more common meta picks at the moment. And so, yeah, the Solgaleo itself is really interesting. But you also have some really fun text on all the other Pokemon, like, special Landorus with Grass Knot and Earth Power and Expert Belt, substitute Regieleki, Misty, Tapu, Fini with Icy Wind and Taunt, and then Quick Attack on Zacian as well. So, as always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps in the description below. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the team. So the first Pokemon on the team to talk about here is this Assault Vest Solgaleo. As you can see, it's max attack, max special defense, and it's Assault Vest, right? So the idea is that this is just ultra bulky, especially against all the special restricteds that you're going to go up against, primarily things like Kyogre and Calyrex Shadow Rider, Lunala, Palkia, for example. The moveset here is pretty interesting because you actually run Crunch and Giga Impact, and neither of those I would say are super common on Solgaleo. Instead, you often expect to see something like Max Lightning, or Max Rockfall coming from Wild Charge and Rock Slide respectively. And so Crunch here is really nice because it gives you a much better matchup into things like Lunala and Calyrex Shadow Rider. And then the Giga Impact to turn into Max Strike is really nice because you can lower your opponent's speed, and it also just gives you some extra coverage that your opponents often aren't going to expect, right? So the theory behind Assault Vest Solgaleo is that it's not necessarily going to get like a ton of one-hit knockouts, but your opponents are really going to struggle to KO it, especially while it's Dynamaxed, and it does so much damage across the board against a lot of the most common Pokemon in the format, right? You think about all the common non-restricteds, and even the common restricteds, right? Things like Zacian, Incineroar, Rillaboom, Regieleki. None of those really like going up against this Solgaleo set in particular. The next Pokemon here is Zacian. Zacian's obviously something that we've used plenty of, doesn't really need an introduction here, but there are a couple of small things to call out with this team. The first thing is that you'll notice it's really bulky, right? 188 HP EVs, and it doesn't have that much speed. It only has 76 speed EVs. It also has Quick Attack here. So, first of all, Quick Attack is often really nice because with Adamant Zacian, you do more damage than your opponents often expect. And then Behemoth Blade into Quick Attack often can just be like a 1-2 punch to just pick up a knockout onto something, right? Quick Attack is a move that I think a lot of players often aren't going to cover from Zacian because there's so many other moves that you'll often see, whether it be like Play Rough or Substitute, for example. And it's just really hard to cover for this option, I'd say, and a lot of players, don't really play around Quick Attack, so you can use that to your advantage. The other thing is, with the speed investment, you're actually 1 speed point slower than Thundurus, and so the theory behind that is that your Thundurus can max Knuckle or max Airstream, giving Zacian a speed or an attack boost before it actually attacks, right? And so most players expect Zacian to be faster than Thundurus. Now you can go for something like a max Knuckle and then get a +2 Behemoth Blade into something rather than just a +1 Behemoth Blade. So naturally, Thundurus and Zacian is a really solid lead option with this team, but if you're looking to lead Solgaleo, one of the recommended routes that the original creator mentioned is Solgaleo plus this Tapu Fini set. This Fini is really interesting because it's a Misty Seed, first of all, and then it's Icy Wind, Nature's Madness, Taunt, Protect with max speed investment. So the idea behind Tapu Fini here is that you can lower your opponent's speed through Icy Wind. It's a pretty bulky Pokemon, right? Especially thanks to Misty Seed. And since the Solgaleo here isn't exactly super fast, what you can do is, Icy Wind or Nature's Madness to like chip away at something, then Solgaleo can finish things off. Earlier, I talked about how Solgaleo here, especially without something like a Weakness Policy or a Life Orb, is going to struggle to pick up one-hit knockouts. But that's why it synergizes really nicely with this Tapu Fini, because you can just Nature's Madness with it, and then Solgaleo can essentially finish something off from around 50%, right? So Fini and Solgaleo is a pretty cool lead. This is really good into some of the more defensive like duos that you might go up against. The original team creator mentioned that they really wanted to counter Calyrex Ice plus Palkia when creating this team, because that was really popular during the time this team was created, especially going into Japanese nationals. And so, yeah, the Fini Solgaleo combo here is really nice into those kind of teams, for example, especially since you have Taunt here as well, right? So, Icy Wind to drop your opponent's speed, Nature's Madness to chip away and let Solgaleo deal the finishing blow, Taunt to stop like Trick Room setups, right? And then just Protect here. Protect's actually a pretty important call out since not a lot of Finis that I often run into carry it. And so I feel like a lot of players will often double up into Fini and not expecting them to carry Protect, and you can leverage that to your advantage. So Final two Pokemon here are Regieleki. This is super standard, but the main thing to call out here is Substitute, which I had actually never have seen any other player use on Regieleki. And so the idea behind Substitute here is that Regieleki is the fastest Pokemon in the format. This thing can essentially stall out your opponent's Dynamax by using Substitute. Normally, players expect to just, get a one-hit knockout onto a Regieleki. Here, you have Sub and Focus Sash. And you might look at that and think, hey, that's kind of counterintuitive, but the theory is basically against, slower paced teams and against teams that you really can effectively style Dynamax with Substitute, you're going to go for that. Against the more fast-paced teams where you're looking to really just get, an Electro Web off, then you don't really need the Substitute, and Sash is really handy in guaranteeing one attack, right? And so, you're going to mainly want to use Sub if you think it's valuable into your opponent's Restricted or Dynamax, and that you can stall out their turns of Dynamax easily with it. The final Pokemon to talk about here is going to be the special Landorus-Therian form with Expert Belt and Earth Power, Grass Knot, Fly, and Protect. The theory behind this Landorus is that on this team, you don't really want to Dynamax it nearly as much because you're running things like the Thundurus and the Solgaleo, and these Pokemon are so much better as max options. So, if you want an Intimidator, okay, Landorus is great, but, the physical set isn't really as effective here. You don't really want to be using Earthquake when you have Regieleki, Zacian, and Solgaleo on the team. So, with Special Landorus, first of all, you catch your opponents off guard. This thing, doesn't care about Intimidates. And what you can do is get that special Expert Belt Earth Power into things like Incineroar and Zacian. Grass Knot's really nice into Groudon as well as some of the other Pokemon in the format, like Gastrodon, for example. And you're never really going to see this coming, especially in a best of one, right? Fly still exists because there are scenarios in which you might want to Dynamax Landorus, right? And so you at least have it as an option, and then just Protect here. So it's cool because, you're not going to see a lot of these moves coming, and Earth Power here, it synergizes so well with this team, given that physical Landorus doesn't honestly accomplish too much here. And with this set, it feels a lot better to use outside of Dynamax than just your regular Landorus set that has Earthquake, Rock Slide, Fly, for example. So, yeah. In terms of modes with this team, like I mentioned, the team creator listed a couple in their team report, but they mentioned Solgaleo, Fini, plus Regieleki and Zacian in the back. You could also do Thundurus, Zacian, so, just hyper offense right from the beginning of the game, and then Landorus, Regieleki, or Landorus, Fini in the back. In certain matchups, you may want to drop Solgaleo, especially in the more sun-oriented ones, because you can get away with it. But you kind of just have to judge based off your opponent's team, right? It always feels a little bit weird to drop your Restricted. You can get away with it, and in fact, it's actually often recommended. But for me personally, I still consider bringing Solgaleo, but Fini exists because, it gives you a better matchup into kind of the Sleep Powder spam that you might run into as well. And then one of the final modes is Regieleki, Solgaleo, plus Fini and Zacian. So a lot of different ways that you can play with this team. I think this, definitely operates a little bit differently from a lot of the things that we featured on the channel so far. So let's dive into things. Alright, first game of the day, and we are up against a Zacian Charizard Groudon team. So, Thundurus is normally kind of the go-to here. Misty C Tapu Fini is pretty interesting. Solgaleo is not exactly amazing here as a Dynamax option because it's obviously really weak to Charizard. Has to worry about Sleep Powders from Venusaur as well. It is somewhat intriguing though, but we don't have Max Rockfall here, right? So I can't really easily KO the Charizard. So what am I most nervous about as a lead then? It's probably something like Groudon, Venusaur, and then the Venusaur just tries to Sleep Powder me. That could be kind of annoying. Fini is actually interesting with Misty Seed because I can Icy Wind. So something like Fini Thundurus as a lead is interesting. Landorus here is also intriguing, but we also don't have a rock type attack, right? I can actually use it to Earth Power and Grass Knot like Zacian and Groudon though. So all of our options are pretty interesting here. I think I want to opt for the Thundurus. Zacian's okay. I don't think we bring a Regieleki. So Thundurus, Zacian, Solgaleo. And I'm going to bring Landorus here, because I think regular Landorus is actually pretty interesting between Earth Power and Grass Knot, because I can Earth Power Zacian and Grass Knot the Groudon. So, we'll see. We definitely have some interesting tricks here, but unfortunately, Zacian Solgaleo isn't exactly super strong into Groudon Zacian, especially with Charizard. So we have to rely a little bit less on Solgaleo and more in the non-restricteds. And they're going to go to Charizard and Venusaur. Okay. So Groudon switching into either spot right now is obviously a little bit scary. If I were my opponent, I would personally switch out Charizard out into the Groudon and then just Sleep Powder into Thundurus. So the play I want to make turn 1 is like protect with Thundurus here, and then just Behemoth Blade into the Venusaur. Then I can just quick attack it next turn. So let's see. There's a lot that can go wrong for us here, right? Like they could just switch into Groudon on the Venusaur slot, and then like Wildfire into Zacian. They could switch Charizard out into Groudon, and then go for Sleep Powder or Max Flare onto the Zacian. But because I have Quick Attack here, if they do indeed target the Thundurus slot, or they miss Sleep Powder onto my Zacian, I'm in really good shape. Okay, they're not going to max. Yep, and they do switch into Groudon. Good. Nice. Perfect. Okay, good. Yep, that played out exactly how I wanted it to. A little bit scary, obviously, because there's no guarantee my opponent was going to do that. But it felt like, you know, a decently safe play from their perspective. Venusaur is Sash there. Yep, so now I can quick attack into that slot. What's also interesting here is, like, you know, do you max your Groudon or your Charizard in this set? But either way, I'm content just Dynamaxing, going for Airstream here onto Groudon. This gives me, you know, the speed advantage against their Zacian in the back. And then we're just going to quick attack here onto Venusaur. So this team has a lot of standard Pokemon, right? But where it gets interesting is a lot of the... oh, wow. They're maxing Venusaur? Okay. That's really interesting. Is it just a max guard then? That's actually a pretty interesting play. It's either just a max guard or they just really value getting Vine Lash off, but I would think that they don't have Protect here, and so they're doing it just to max guard. Okay. What I was going to say about the team, though, is that you obviously have, like, really standard conventional Pokemon outside of the Solgaleo Zacian pairing, but then you have a lot of interesting like moves specifically that your opponents often aren't going to expect, like Quick Attack on the Zacian, Grass Knot on the Landorus, for example, Substitute. And yeah, they just fall to Quick Attack. Okay, I think what my opponent was probably trying to do was, since Zacians normally don't carry Quick Attack, they're thinking, well, okay, I can just actually maybe get a one-hit knockout onto your Zacian with the Max Flare. But now they just waste their Dynamax, right? And I think this will make the game essentially impossible for them to come back from unless they... we'll see here. Like, if neither Pokemon gets knocked out here, I think it is basically game over. So, okay, they have Citrus Berry, that's fine. Your options here are, you know what, like Stone Edge, Rock Tomb, Swords Dance, Precipice Blades. Yeah, they just go for Blades. Cool. We should survive that with Spread here, and Zacian being bulky. Yep, exactly. Now I've got a speed boost on both of these, and so I definitely outspeed the opposing Zacian in the back. Charizard now is very, very useless for my opponent. So the first two turns of this battle have played out perfectly, and I think this game highlights the strength of something like Quick Attack, right? Because without Quick Attack, their Venusaur does get an attack off there, and it could just be a Max Flare, for example, into my Zacian slot, right? Coming from Weather Ball. So I still think it was kind of ambitious to go for that max, because it's not like getting the one-hit knockout onto Zacian alone puts you in a really good spot. They also may have been just going for Vine Lash to guarantee residual damage for this endgame, but yeah. Charizard comes out now. Yep. With us having Solgaleo in the back, still 2 turns of Dynamax on Thundurus, and this Landorus with Grass Knot in the back, things are looking pretty good. I'm content to just max Lightning here onto Charizard, and Behemoth Blade onto Groudon. We might not get the one-hit knockout onto Groudon, but it's fine. Like, you know, it compresses Blades my Zacian for a KO, but then I just get a free switch in, right? And your Groudon will be at super low HP, so let's say you do indeed KO my Groudon while protecting Charizard, then I just get a free switch it into the Solgaleo or the Landorus. I'd probably actually go into Landorus and then go for Airstream, so then I can outspeed the Zacian with Landorus. Because Solgaleo doesn't really need to be faster than their Zacian, because it already is bulky enough to take attacks from it, right? So, yep. There's Life Orb Max Lightning into Charizard, no Protect there. We know Focus Sash was already on the Venusaur, so that's a guaranteed one-hit KO. Beautiful. And so, yeah, Quick Attack was obviously the main tech for us here, but it was also nice just, like, turn 1 worked out really well, right? Where we were able to prevent any damage and prevent a Sleep Powder while also bringing Venusaur down to Focus Sash. So that's why in Pokemon, like, even a single move choice can give you a pretty significant advantage, right? Because sometimes your opponent's just they're not gonna consider it as a possibility, and it completely warps, like, how, you know, game plans can shake up. So 4-1 lead now. Zacian comes out. Yep. So Solgaleo didn't really come out in this matchup, nor the Landers, but it was hard to bring either earlier on, right? Like, like, this duel is just obviously so oppressive. So We have a speed boost. We can actually just Knuckle here into Behemoth Blade. I mean, it doesn't make a difference, but Knuckle's just fun if they protect here. I can guarantee one-shot onto Zacian next turn. Cool. And then this is the other thing, right? The fact that the Zacian's ultra bulky here, and then the Thundurus actually is faster than it. So you can go for these Knuckle plays, right? Knuckle into Behemoth Blade. Cool. Okay, yeah, that was just this lead putting in a lot of work, I think. And I think it helped because, like, if my opponent had led Groudon Venusaur or Charizard Venusaur, then you have a little bit more pressure immediately. But the thing about a Charizard Venusaur lead is normally you're going to want to switch one of the two in a Groudon. And the thing is, like, both of those are really good max options, and you want to max both, right? But Charizard is a much stronger max option than Venusaur is, and so a lot of times the Venusaur is just going to stay in base form and fish for sleep powders. But yeah, my opponent did have Weather Ball, like, they could have just switched in a Groudon and flared into the Zacian on turn 1, but, you know, I can understand why you might not love that as a play, because if I just Dynamax Thundurus and Airstream your Venusaur, it's a pretty bad trade, ultimately, I would say. But yeah, Quick Attack really won us this game, I'd say. Plus, my opponent, I think, maybe could have conserved their Dynamax on Venusaur and used it on Charizard or Groudon instead, but I don't think the Charizard max really would have been possible unless they fully stalled out Thundurus' Dynamax. And that would have been pretty difficult because, like, I still have Wild Charge plus Behemoth Blade from Zacian. So I think, like, just sacrificing Venusaur and maxing Groudon, getting the one-hit knockout onto Zacian, then isn't a terrible trade-off. My response to that then would be bringing in Landorus-T, intimidating their Groudon, using Thundurus to knock out, you know, the Charizard or the Zacian next to the Groudon, and then stalling out Groudon's Dynamax, then I can just Grass Knot it with Landorus in the long term. So, yeah. Either way, though, Quick Attack Zacian was awesome there. So, let's look for another. Ooh, next game here, we're actually up against Lunala and Zacian with Gastrodon, Incineroar, Rillaboom, and Thundurus. Okay. I think this is a really nice game for Solgaleo because I have Crunch on this. So, Solgaleo can just max Darkness Lunala, can max Quake into Zacian. So, the main thing I can't really hit super well is Thundurus on their end, so we want to have answers into that. Zacian's always solid. Solgaleo lead here is okay. I think the other thing to worry about is, like, Gastrodon, but I think that's where Misty Seed Fini is interesting. Especially with Nature's Madness. Rillaboom's kind of annoying for it, though. I think I like Regieleki, Fini, Zacian, and Solgaleo in this one. I don't think I really want Thundurus. I mean, Thundurus isn't bad. Actually, because, like, I could use Thundurus as a max option and regular Solgaleo here, now that I think about it. Right? Because I can, like, Airstream Crunch, for example, and I can Knuckle to increase attack as well. Oh, that could work. Like, Grass Knot on Landorus, you're not going to expect either. For the lead, I think I'm okay going with the Zacian. Sorry, Solgaleo. Regieleki. Zacian, and then I'm going to bring Landorus here, and part of the reason for that is because it's very hard to expect the Landorus set here. And so if they have Gastrodon, like, I can just easily snipe it off with Landorus. But I think Fini could work really well here as well. The main thing is I don't know if I really need Nature's Madness or Icy Wind support here, and Fini does full to the Thundurus pretty easily on their end. So they're going to go with Zacian and Lunala. Okay. A lot of the times the Lunalas on these teams are going to be pretty speedy, like maybe even modest max speed. But I think this is actually a really strong start for us. Because with the Regieleki, I can just click Electro Web. And I've got Crunch here. The other interesting thing is, like, do I actually need to Dynamax here, right? Because if I don't Dynamax, Crunch still does a ton and should get the KO after breaking Shadow Shield. And I don't expect Zacian to really target Solgaleo here. The benefit of maxing is I would take, like, I'd lose less HP essentially against Zacian should they Sacred Sword me. And then I can also get a special defense drop via Max Darkness. I'm kind of down to just Crunch here. Because I also think Dynamaxing Regieleki is an option. Ooh, okay, they have Wide Guard. That's sweet. That's not terrible, though. Like, obviously it blocks the Electro Web, but the thing is I get Crunch off still, and that's really valuable into Lunala. Sacred Sword. Yep, okay, into Regieleki, that's fine. What would be funny now is if they did have, their own Quick Attack. Okay. I guess I don't know if Thunderbolt actually KOs from that range, depending on their investment. So that's also interesting. Okay. I'm okay with the idea of maxing here. Quaking into Zacian. And Thunderbolting here into Lunala. Yeah, the thing is, I don't know if Thunderbolt KOs Lunala from that range if you have special defense or HP investment, so it's kind of close. Turn 1, I also could have considered just protecting on Regieleki, but Wide Guard on Lunala, like, it's a move that you should think about, but, you know, the standard Lunala set really... Okay, switch, is that Thundurus coming in? Okay, it's Gastrodon, that's fine. Thundurus coming in there would have been pretty scary, but this turn works out pretty well for us, I'd say. Anyway, what I wanted to say, though, was, yeah, like, with Lunala, you so commonly want to run Meteor Beam, Trick Room, Moongeist Beam, and Protect, but on my opponent's team here, I think, like, you probably just drop Trick Room for Wide Guard, since the team is already pretty fast between Lunala and Zacian as your restricted pair, as well as Thundurus as one of your main Dynamax options. Okay, so I do get Thunderbolt off here into Lunala. Nice, that's enough for a KO. Okay, so that puts us in a really good spot. And this is why I really like this Solgaleo set on this team, right? It's like Assault Vest. It's really interesting into a lot of the common attackers in the format. Quake does just under 50% there. I guess the one thing is, yeah, by not bringing in Tapu Fini now, like, Gastrodon can potentially go for Yawn, which is kind of annoying, but I guess it's okay. We expect what? I expect Thundurus, but it's Incineroar. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Incineroar is really interesting because it means... Who do you even Dynamax in this game? Gastrodon? Because what I want to do here is just max Quake. I do have a base 150 max strike in a Gastrodon, actually. That might just KO Gastrodon. It's really close. Because at this point, you're either maxing Gastrodon or you're Incineroar. Max Gastrodon is actually not scary at all, personally. Max Incin, I guess, scares me a little bit more because you can max Flare. Okay. I am just going to... I'm going to strike into Gastrodon here. And I'm actually not going to switch out Regieleki here because I don't mind them getting a KO onto it. I think Aleki's really done his job at this point in the game. So, yeah, I'm curious who they commit the Dynamax to. I think with my opponent's team composition, the thing is... Okay, yeah, they're going to max Incineroar. That's fine with me. Because I've got Landorus in the back for Intimidate. I've got Earth Power onto it. I wonder if Strike just one-shots the Gastrodon here, honestly. T-Bolt does okay damage into Incineroar. We actually get a Paralysis, which is really lucky. That mainly matters for, like, now them potentially not being able to, you know, attack the next couple of turns. Strike does not KO the Gastrodon. Yeah, it was close, but unfortunately not enough. I thought like, maybe we had a chance based off the Max Quake roll. They're going to Yawn into Solgaleo. Yep, that's fine. And then Max Flare. I would expect a double up into Solgaleo here, but they actually just target Regieleki. Okay, that works for me. Free switch into Landorus now. If I had Tapu Fini here, I feel like things would be really good. I mean, things are still solid, honestly. I'm going to Zacian or Landorus. I think the right action to take here... So let's think about it, right? Their last Pokemon is their Zacian. Dynamax ends after this turn. I'm going to fall asleep. I can bring in Landorus right now and, like, Earth Power Max Quake double up onto Incineroar. They could Ice Beam me. I mean, I'm down to bring in Landorus here. I guess the problem in bringing in Landorus, though, is that now, like, if I switch Solgaleo out into Zacian, I just get hit by a Max Flare, which is not ideal. You could also Max Guard Incineroar here and, like, Ice Beam into Landorus, which scares me. Special defense boost. I actually like the idea of just, like, Steel Spiking here into Gastrodon, get the knockout onto that. and then switch Landorus out into Zacian. Yeah, because then I'll get a defense boost onto my Zacian, and the end game basically will be Landorus plus Zacian, and I'll have an Intimidate onto both, right? And a defense boost on my Zacian. So I'm willing to let Solgaleo fall asleep here, essentially. Gastron protects, that's fine. It's kind of expected. The other plan I was thinking there was doubling up onto the Incineroar, but yeah, they did indeed go for max guard. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I don't want to just completely waste the turn. So Steel Spike comes out. Chaos Gastron, beautiful. Okay, now this next turn, I can just pivot Solgaleo out into my Landorus and just protect my Zacian. Zacian's already really slow on my end, so it's not like I have to worry about them outspeeding me, right? We're just bulkier, and I have Intimidate on my side. Now I have a defense boost as well. Okay. I will say, though, like, this game still feels like it's in a tricky spot, and given that we got them to max Zacian, like, maybe I should have just switched, or sorry, max Incineroar, maybe I should have just switched out Solgaleo. That may have been the better, like, line to take here. I also could just stay in with Solgaleo here, burn a turn of sleep, but I don't mind swapping in for the immediate Intimidate and then the Protect here. Yeah, I think that's fine. Because basically, like, my Zacian's going to be able to just one-shot their Incineroar with the Sacred Sword next turn, and unless they're running Protect on Incineroar, which actually is something that's, like, I feel like rising in usage, unless they're running that, we should one-shot Incineroar, and the game will be a 3v1, maybe a 2v1 if they did double up onto the Landorus slot here. But then I'll still have the Intimidate advantage, and Zacian struggles to KO Solgaleo easily. They have sub, but that's fine. Not really worried too much about that as an option. And Flare, yep. Into the Zacian slot. I think that's the right play from their end to make, though. But that actually, that Flare only did 21 damage, so we would have survived pretty comfortably. But I don't really see any value in attacking that turn, because I'm just waiting for the Dynamax to end, right? Now you are intimidated, you're at -2 attack, and I have a defense boost here. So we can just go for Earth Power now into the Zacian slot, and then Sacred Sword into Incineroar. I think switching Landorus out into Solgaleo is also appropriate here. The only thing I lose to now is a Behemoth Blade critical hit onto Zacian, so maybe I should have tried to play around that a little bit better. But no crit, beautiful. And you can see with the defense boost, like, I don't even fall in their half there. With that and the Intimidate, right? So I'm okay using a slower, bulky Zacian here to make sure I can win this trade-off, because I don't care about you outspeeding me if I just do more damage to you and you can't KO me, right? So now we get Earth Power off. And this is one of the other reasons why the special Landorus is really nice, because, like, if you're running regular Landorus and you're just stuck clicking Earthquake, it's a little bit awkward, because I don't want to Earthquake either Solgaleo or Zacian at the moment, right? But now we can just Earth Power and Behemoth Blade. Yeah. And either of those attacks should get the one-hit knockout onto Zacian, so we don't really need to consider switching, even if they crit one of the two. We're fine here. So this was a cool game for Solgaleo, honestly, because, like, the Solgaleo just, like, doesn't take much damage from opposing Zacians. It's interesting, right? Yeah, Lunala has Moongeist Beam. You could Dynamax and Phantasm us, but with Assault Vest and Dynamax, like, Moongeist Beam just does such little damage. And then, like, I was expecting Thunderous in the back. Like, what I was worried about was, like, Dynamax Thunderous in this game, right? But they didn't bring it. Gastron makes a lot of sense because of Yawn pressure. But I think by not bringing the Thunderous, it made it so that they didn't have, like, super good Dynamax options, right? They were essentially forced to Dynamax Incineroar. And I think that was actually their best choice, right? Given the 4 Pokemon they brought. But Max Incineroar just isn't really that strong to begin with. And then with Intimidate from my Landorus-T as well, it just becomes that much weaker. So, yeah. Really fun game, though. And then I think the Wide Guard was certainly really cool. But I think this game highlights, like, the strength of Assault Vest Solgaleo. Because on turn 1, I was up against both of my opponent's Restricteds. And I felt like I was in such a good spot where I didn't even need to Dynamax Solgaleo, right? And I think that's really telling. So, yeah. We'll look for a third. Oh, my gosh. Okay. This is very different. I didn't think we'd fight like a Solgaleo battle here. But this is such a cool team. Solgaleo, Raikou, Palkia, Eldegoss, Landorus-T, Grimmsnarl. Eldegoss is really interesting because I have very little experience playing against it. We actually just featured on the channel a couple of weeks ago. But I don't really know how to fight against it. How do I beat opposing Solgaleos? I think Regieleki with substitutes really interesting here to try to stall out Dynamax. Regieleki. My own Solgaleo maybe. Landorus-T Earth Power is not bad. I don't want to bring Thundurus here because it's got a pretty bad matchup in a Solgaleo. We want Zacian, so it's between Fini and Landorus here. Okay, I'm down to give Fini a shot here. And the reason for that is because I think my opponent's team is decently bulky, so I think Nature's Madness here holds a lot of value. A lot more value than it normally would, because getting guaranteed like 50% of my opponent's health on their Pokemon I think is going to be really valuable. But this is a really cool team. I mean, Solgaleo Palkia, I've never really seen that as a restricted pair. They have Eldegoss as well as Raikou, like a lot of cool things. It's going to be Raikou and Solgaleo. Okay. What do I expect here? Bulldoze? Could be Scarf Bulldoze. Activate Policy. Ugh. If that's what it is, I'm actually in a lot of trouble. Because essentially, in order to win the game, I need to stall out their Dynamax. Yeah, that's not good. I need to stall out their Dynamax. Protect. Max. And just Quake Raikou. Yeah, like we don't have a fast Solgaleo here either. I don't want to target their Solgaleo immediately because I guess there's no guarantee their policy. You could be bluffing it here, but I do think Bulldoze into policy here makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, what else could I have led against this? Fini kind of just gets demolished immediately. Nature's Madness isn't that valuable. Icy Wind's useless, so not that. I guess it could be Landorus-T. Landorus-T Solgaleo, maybe. I honestly think from this position, it's looking really bad. Like, before the battles even started, just from these leads and how these Dynamax's interaction plays out. Because I don't really have a very easy Solgaleo answer here right now. Yeah, it is Bulldoze. And I imagine they're just going to target my Solgaleo here. I might just feint a +2 Quake, honestly. So, you know what the answer was? I didn't see it immediately, but the answer was actually Dynamax Regieleki, Max Lightning into the Solgaleo and crunch it. Okay, they go for Steel Spike, though, so I guess I'll take it. Because the thing is, I can actually sub next turn now, but I don't think Quake KOs Raikou is the problem. The thing is, Max Regieleki, I don't know, Max Lightning just doesn't do that much, but the thing is, I would get a really powerful Max Lightning off on turn 2 of the battle. But if it is just Scarf Raikou... Oh, and they survive with just the Sliver. Okay. So they're willing to go for Steel Spike for defense boosts, which makes sense. Could be another Bulldoze here. I could just Thunderbolt right now. And just Quake into Solg. I was thinking about substituting, but I don't think it accomplishes too much here. If we KO'd Raikou, maybe it's worth it. I mean, I guess that turn wasn't terrible, but... Yeah, I just don't exactly actually have the best Solgaleo matchup myself, which is kind of ironic. Okay, we do just get the KO with Thunderbolt here, which is good at least. So Raikou's out of the way. This one would be interesting, like if you're Solgaleo, do you just commit the Quake onto the Solgaleo slot instead, or you just try to KO Regieleki? It's another Steel Spike, okay. So they're going to go for the Regieleki knockout. That makes sense. Defense boosts are so valuable given how physically oriented the team that we're using is, right? But Sacred Sword from Zacian will ignore the defense boost in the long run, so at least I have that going for me. The problem is, what do I do this next turn, right? Yeah, Quake does pretty insignificant damage there. I can bring in Tapu Fini. I think that's the right line to take. If I bring out Zacian, the play would have been to just protect it, right? Whereas Fini, I can taunt Solgaleo. That's Eldegoss coming out. Okay. That's also pretty interesting. I think the problem for me in this game is that their Solgaleo is faster and it does more damage thanks to policy. Both of those are just, you know, really bad for me. I want to... It makes sense for them to just target my Solgaleo, but I can't do anything about that. Okay, I'm gonna taunt and Quake here, and the idea is to just, like, get out Zacian and Sacred Sword it, because at least Eldegoss doesn't really do damage, but... Yeah, with Helping Hand here, I think they should just one-shot me, unfortunately. Yep, they go for Quake. I didn't really have a way around that, because I don't have Max Guard here. Battle of the Solgaleos in the end. Yeah, this, the Raikou Solgaleo Eldegoss pairing is really cool to see here. And Raikou's a nice partner, right? Because it doesn't flinch thanks to inner focus. So, I mean, I get taunts off, but I don't think the +1 Sacred Sword's even killing Solgaleo. So what I could do is protect Zacian, and then, like, we could still win this game, right? Because Eldegoss doesn't really do too much damage. And, like, Fini plus Zacian could very easily win against, like, Palkia, for example. So this next turn, essentially, I have to make the call on who I think Solgaleo is targeting, because, like, Eldegoss can just go for another Helping Hand, right? And my play is either to protect Zacian and just Nature's Madness, or protect Fini Sacred Sword. Now, the obvious play, I'd say, is to just protect Zacian. And it's so obvious that I almost want to just protect the Fini instead, because Protect on Fini also isn't that common. And, like, I could see them trying to just, like, snipe off Fini with the Helping Hand plus Sunsteel Strike right now. Yeah, I'm going to go for it. I feel pretty behind in this game. And if I were my opponent's shoes, I would actually target the Fini slot, I think, just because so few Finis carry Protect. Okay, no Helping Hand. We get Sacred Sword. They did just Sunsteel Strike Zacian, though. Okay. At +2, I mean, we are pretty bulky, so we might actually survive this, but let's see. Yeah, I do survive. Haha, Pollen Puff, though. Okay. So actually, with Pollen Puff, even with Nature's Madness there, not sure I could have done too much, unfortunately. Yeah, that was a really safe play there. Because we would have gotten half of them, but then they would have just healed up to even more. Yeah. So I need a crit Sacred Sword here, essentially, right? Yeah, I'll taunt and hope for a crit. This was a beautifully played Solgaleo game on their end, though, honestly, from turn 1 all the way until, yeah, this end game. Yeah, they're just gonna Earthquake now. I mean, how do I beat the Raikou Solgaleo Eldegoss combination? It's not easy, because I can't really deny them weakness policy that easily, right? Could be something like a Lecky Zacian and just try to KO Raikou immediately. I don't like Thunderous too much here, because I can't really hit Solgaleo. So, yeah, I think, like, a Lecky works, maybe. A Lecky... Landers is also interesting, because I can obviously Max Quake with it, so, like, I don't know if it was Scarf Raikou, right? We never saw it go for another attack. But, like, yeah, Alecki Landorus, Alecki Zacian, and just denying them activation of policy, I think, is the most important, like, way to beat my opponent's team. Because if we deny them policy, the Solgaleo doesn't just get all these one-hit knockouts, right? And so then the goal is, okay, after we stalled out the Dynamax, I can knock it out a little bit easier. But the problem is, in this game, Solgaleo just fully got set up, and I just didn't really have too much counterplay to it. And so I needed to lead a little bit better, and Raikou and Solgaleo was, like, it should have been the default lead I should have seen from my opponent's team, but I think the main thing is Raiku's just not a very common Pokemon, so I didn't really think about ways that Solgaleo's policy would get activated there, and I didn't do a very good job like trying to counter that lead specifically. But that was a really cool team, right? It was two very non-common support Pokemon in Raikou and Eldegoss, plus a really cool, Solgaleo in itself as well. And it didn't help that the Solgaleo we're using here is a lot slower than theirs as well, and so yeah, that makes things trickier as well. So if I were to replay that, or if this were a best of 3, the game plan would be lead in a way that basically does not allow them to easily get weakest policy off. So something like Regieleki plus Landorus, and I can Electro Web Max Quake Raikou. The thing is, that doesn't work if they're scarfed on the Raikou, which I have a suspicion it might be. So that's the other scary thing, right? Because the thing is that Zacian on this team is also slower than even like Thundurus, right? So yeah, if Raikou is max speed, then with Scarf, even with Electro Web, you just outspeed Zacian, or at least you should. So yeah, like, curious on the item choice there. Scarf just makes the most sense to me, so you can really guarantee the Bulldoze off a little bit easier. And if that's the case, like, it's really tough, because Solgaleo can just pick up one-hit knockouts like left and right. And so yeah, policy Solgaleo with the Raikou. Not a super easy matchup here, but I think my opponent like maneuvered that really, really perfectly as well. And so yeah. Anyway, though, that's going to be it for this one. So thanks so much as always for watching. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day, and I'll see you all next time. All right, peace.